All right, so welcome to another episode of Between Two Amps.
This is part 2, right?
Yeah, this week we're doing part 2 of our journey through gear. If you remember on the first episode, we started down the path of how we got into music and what the gear was in the early stages. So we wanted to pick up where we left off on that. But first, we have a very special and exciting announcement. We have none other than Liquid Death sponsoring the show now. I want to give a very special shout out to those guys and believing in the podcast and sending us so many cases of Liquid Death. And I have to say, this is dope.
This is Bury It Alive. Vogel, if you're watching this one's for you.
And there's, mango chainsaw, there's regular water, there's sparkling water.
So they have the regular water and the sparkling, which I love. It's also aluminum, not plastic, that's why I really like it. It's cool if you're not a drinker and like a alcohol drinker. This looks like a tall boy, so if you're on a meeting, just beware.
And also shout out their merch is incredible.
Yeah.
A big fan of the Liquid Death long sleeves. Took one out. I was wearing mine proudly mountain biking the other day. Got quite a few looks. Perfect.
Yes.
Love it.
So definitely go check this out. I think you can get it at whatever stores. But
they have a finder on their site. You can find where to get it in your zip code. But yeah, Liquid Death, hell yeah.
He was looking for a life that would give him the feeling of being worthwhile.
So, picking up on where we left off in the part 1, I think I was at that point just getting into first real amp, and for me it was it was a JCM 900 50 watt that I got. That was still the current top of the line amp, aside from the 30th anniversary head that they had going on.
I don't know
back
about
then.
this.
It was another blue head, not to be confused with the blue Voodoo.
I think where I left off with mine is I just got a crate from some lame music store that was just trying to they sold crates, but they would talk shit on them. So I was like, well, they're cheap. I'm gonna buy it. It was right next to this Piggly Wiggly. I think people in the South might know. It's the only Piggly Wiggly in my neighborhood, or in the suburb I grew up in.
There's a Piggly Wiggly in Chicago?
Yeah. I was outside, I was like, what the hell is this place? Anyways, I remember walking out with the crate head, which I bought for $200, and I had a Laney cabinet that I bought off of the out of the classifieds. And
so which crate head was it? Was it a solid state?
Solid state, yeah.
Okay.
No, there was no Blue Voodoo at the time. I didn't even know what a tube head was. I was just oh, this is an amp, right? I don't know. So I just played out of that, plugged into a Laney head, had no wheels. It was the heaviest thing ever. Had no grate. It had those plastic cover, the plastic
the individual
speaker covers. Yeah, the grills, the individual plastic grills. It was super heavy, and I had for a long time, I think I had a Strength 691, if you remember that band. They were from New Jersey. Awesome band back in the day. Had a sticker of them on the cabinet. I remember it pretty vividly, and that was my rig for a long time. That and sometimes I'd have the HM2, which I had bought in high school, and I'd plug that in and try to make it more. Because I didn't know nothing about tone, so it just sounded like sizzle. But it got the job done. I'd play shows, and it was loud enough. It was totally loud enough, and it sounded like shit, but it was loud enough. It gave me the crunch I wanted, and I saw Earth Crisis playing those heads like when I first saw them. So I was like, "Oh, this is good enough," you know?
Yeah, I remember they had those heads on the. It was an NBC that had the expose on Straight Edge.
Oh yeah.
They were playing
yeah.
like it was early on, and we're still playing like the Jackson Stealth,
The Charvels, too.
Charvels,
Yeah.
and crate amps. Because I got straight from the Dean Markley. I got a JCM 900, and that head actually sounded really good in hindsight. And and then I ended up getting a just like an angled 1960A.
Oh, okay.
Like with 75 watt Celestians in it.
Yeah.
But it was all like, so I had that, and then I still had the Ibanez S540, and then I found a Gibson SG Standard. It was a 1990 that I got for $400. That was a steal. Like the Marshall, I think I paid $500 for the head, and then I can't remember how much the cabinet was.
So I think for guitars, I was playing the Kramer, the pink Kramer Strat for a while.
Yeah.
And then I got rid of, I think I sold that to buy the crate head.
Yeah.
Once I got the crate head, I still needed a guitar, and I found my 72 SG in the classifieds with a Bigsby that some dude was selling because he needed money for drugs, which he told me at the time, like, frankly. And I was like, okay. And I was like, he's like, $300? I'm like, sure. And at that time, I was like, $300 for a guitar? That's kind of pricey. But I was like, fuck, it's a good deal for a Les Paul.
So the 72 SG you got was $300?
Yeah, $350. I talked him down to $300. And it has a Bigsby on it, and it had some, like, the neck definitely had pieces missing out of it, like not like really bad, but you could tell someone did a shitty like putty, like a wood putty job on it. Huh. You know, like,
was it broken?
No, it wasn't broken at all. Like, there was nothing broken on it. It was just like someone like maybe there was like a crack, not a crack, but like a divot in it or something like that someone tried smoothing over. It was a really shitty like wood putty job. But I was like, fuck it, man. This thing, it's a Gibson, you know, and little did I know that changing strings on this thing would be a fucking nightmare because it had a Bigsby on it. Oh. And I had no idea how to do it. There was no YouTube, you know, and I was just like, fuck. So I definitely had strung it the wrong way multiple times and played it that way for probably a year. But it still worked. Had the original pickups in it, and yeah, that was $300. And so my setup at the time then was the SG, the crate, and the Laney. And I remember playing that for a while and throwing that guitar around like it was a fucking toy. Like, just didn't care. I was like, fuck, because at that time, it was more about jumping around than it was about playing guitar, at least for me. So I just, like, that's what I did. And that thing took a beating.
Man.
And
so what bands were you playing?
So I was in a band called after this band Cornerstone that I was in with the demo. I was in this band called, God, what was it called? Nail Bomb or something like that, or something nail.
With Max Cavalera and
no, I think it was like Nail Driver or something like that. And then we were and then it turned into like this band called Disdain, and then we had a bunch of lineup switches, and then Jim Stormtrooper actually ended up was playing drums in this one version of it, and then our friend John Nicholson was singing, and then John Nicholson was definitely a better bass player. So then John was actually an awesome bass player, and he ended up playing bass, and then Jim Stormtrooper ended up singing instead of playing drums. And then we got my friend Jason, who now plays in Sweet Cobra, the drummer for Sweet Cobra. He ended up playing drums, and that became this band called Extinction. And it was like vegan straight edge band. Catalyst Records did the EP, and then we did a full length as well with Kurt from with Catalyst Records, and our friend JP, who did this zine called Value of Strength, from Amsterdam, or from Holland. And was my rig in that band for maybe the first like year that band was around.
Right.
Because then we started playing shows with like bigger bands. And I was like, oh, no one's playing crates anymore. I gotta get something different. No one's playing these weird cabinets with like plastic grill covers on them. I gotta get something different.
Yeah, because I think that JCM 900 I had could have lasted. Like, I should have held on to it for longer.
Yeah.
Like that head was definitely special. Like I had swapped out at one point I saw, and I don't even know, it was like a transitional head, like an early 900, but it wasn't the SLX, but it was a single channel.
Okay.
900.
Tube.
What's that?
It was a tube. It wasn't the.
Yeah, it was tube. Yeah.
They had a solid.
So it was a transitional head between the 800 and the 900, but it was 900. So it didn't have the reverb. Mm-hmm. It didn't have channel switching on it. It had like a boost on it.
Got it.
But I ended up trading like the JCM 900 for that at this place called Fret Mill in Roanoke, Virginia. And I was super bummed. Like the transformer blew out immediately on the head that I had traded for.
Yeah.
I was just like,
I went straight from that crate to rack gear. So at the time we started playing these bigger bands, and some of the bands at this point were trying to do the whole like rack power amp. And so you can have it was called a multi-effects processor at that time, not what they're calling them these days.
like a modeler. Yeah.
They call them amp modelers now. Back then it was called a multi-effects processor because the technology wasn't good enough to model an amp.
Right.
They tried.
I'd still say there's a difference between multi-effects, like so. It being like multi-effects unit, like an Eventide or like the Digitech offerings, pre the Digitidesign rack.
So what I had a Digitech 2101.
Dude,
do you remember this thing?
Oh yeah, do you remember?
It had the dial. It had 200 presets on it.
Oh, I know exactly what that was. I wanted one, but what was fun, like, do you remember like the Guitar World and like Guitar for the Practicing Musician? Like there was this running like sweepstakes that I don't like. It went on for years. I don't know if anyone ever won anything from this, but it was like you had a choice of like, two rigs, and like one of them was this like 60 space like rack fridge with all filled with gear for guitar. I'm like, who? And then it was like, and it was I don't know if you remember like the 80s, like the ADA angled 212s. So it was like you could have so it's like an angle cab, but it's just a 212. And so it's vertical, so you have like a 412 that you can split and have like stereo spacing on and run, in stereo. And it was just like...
So that's like, I had a 2101 Digitech effects processor, and I had a QSC power amp, which is a DJ like power amp that's used for PA systems, right?
Kurt Cobain used those.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah,
really.
He used because he had all of I remember it might have been Crown. I can't remember. It was
it could be a Crown one too.
Yeah, he was using. I don't know what he was using for the preamp. Mm-hmm. But it just that I was reading how he used all of these it was just buying Crown or power amps.
I had
solid state.
Yeah, I had QSC power amp, and that thing was supposed to be loud, but it just wasn't. And I was probably hooking it up wrong. People at Guitar Center and the guitar place had no idea what they were doing either, and I was like, fuck, this sucks. And at that time, Carvin, for some reason, was a really big brand, and I'd get their catalog all the time. And Carvin had this sick 2-channel power amp. I believe it was tube.
But I think they did have some tube stuff.
Yeah, I think it was tube, and I bought that. And so my rig from then on till all the late 90s was this Digitech 2101 with a Carvin power amp. I remember a 2-channel, and I had my preset for Extinction, and it was just vegan metal preset, whatever that was. You know, if that was a genre, which I believe it was, and whatever distortion came with that was that.
What, in the Digitech?
Yeah.
Ooh.
So I had no other stuff. It was just a Digitech with the Carvin power amp, and I had a floorboard that controlled the effects, which was a Digitech floorboard. So I was able to tune off that and all this other stuff. Not that I tuned ever, but
I want to hear a sound clip of that.
Oh, I have this. Wait, what did I? There's definitely a recording with that. I will get that. I will see if I can find it.
Oh man.
Oh god, it's fucking awful. And at live, it was like, it got the job done, but it sounded like shit, you know. And a lot of times when we started playing like shows further out, someone in one of the bands in Chicago always had a good tube amp, and so it always ended up using something like that. A lot of times it was a JCM 900, and I didn't know. I was like, oh, this sounds cool. It's like a JCM 900 was a common amp that people would have that you could just use, you know. And that was it. No one really was playing Fenders. No one was really playing like Trainers or acoustic, any of those, even like cheaper, like, you know. Not that Fenders are cheap, but that was it. And then I remember when Harvest was the first band that I saw. They were like full Mesa, right? And you're like, holy shit, this band sounds insane. They were loud, they were tight, they were just like, they had their gear like on lockdown. And then there was Extinction, which like we were, you know, our bass player wore a backpack and was just jumping in the air with his bass, didn't really play bass. He now, I believe, has a house in the Hollywood Hills.
Who is this?
Huh?
Who?
Oh, he plays in a band called Fall Out Boy. I don't remember them.
Oh, wait, no. From Harvest?
No, from Extinction.
Who was it?
He once.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And I don't think he could tell you what kind of gear he was playing, because I don't think he was playing gear. He had some gear you could plug into, whoever would let us borrow gear basically at that time. But yeah, so we really didn't even like, the goal of our band wasn't like to even sound like tight. It's like if you wanted to hear the band, you could listen to the record. We were just gonna go fucking nuts. But then I saw Harvest, I was like, oh shit, man, this band is fucking tight. And then you'd see all the other bands that we'd play with. We'd play a lot of shows like Despair, Harvest. We'd play shows with like a lot of bands from Buffalo, or a lot of, you know. And then I was like, oh man, these bands are fucking like tight, you know. Yeah. It was like when I saw them Broken, I was like, yes. But they were so loose and like sloppy, and I loved it, you know, because that was what I wanted to sound like. And then I see all these other bands that are like sounding like tight, like Snapcase, and it was more kind of like their sound, but I'd see their gear and I was like, And then I'd see like the more metal bands that were playing, they had all the rack gear. And at that time I was like kind of conflicted, but I remember like seeing bands from the East Coast and stuff, and no one was really playing rack gear. I think that was like a Midwestern thing.
It like, yeah, I feel like it held on a lot longer in the metal scene than it did anywhere else. But like there was like when I had started playing out, like I had the Marshall, and then eventually like I'd seen the first time I saw like the dual rectifier was like a Looking Glass, like late Looking Glass Self era show where at least one of the guitar players was playing the rack mount dual rectifier. Okay. And it sounded incredible from what I remember. You know, like what it actually sounded like was, you know, who knows, but like I was like, oh, okay, like I took note of that. And there was in Richmond there was a Metro Sound was the one store that was starting to like stock all of the, like, because that was when boutique amps kind of started, because like Mezzo was definitely
a boutique amp at that time,
at the time, but they had like Matchless, they had Orange, like when Orange started coming out again in the 90s, and they were actually coming out with like amps built with the original like new old stock parts from when the
it's when all those
factories
bands,
shut
it's
down.
when all those bands were, all those amps were still handmade again.
Yeah, it was just like I got exposed to like all the the cool amp. Like there was they had high watt, matchless, Mezza, Orange. They had some other stuff in there, but it was like that was the first time I actually got to play a dual rectifier. And I thought it was insane that there's this head that's $1,250.
Yeah.
Or it was $1,200. I think there was a couple price increases.
I think it was more than that.
Oh no! They were definitely like the street price in like 94, 95 was $1,200.
That's expensive for them.
But then it seemed like insanely expensive. But I did end up getting Orange 212. From there, and that I held on for a long time. So it was just like early shows, like was playing with this band called Left in Ruins, and that was where I met Nate Newton, playing with like shows with Jesuit, and starting to see like what those bands were playing. Like Nate, I think still had his Ampeg, but the other guitar player had a triple rectifier, like the 2-channel triple rectifier, and which was hilarious, like playing basement shows with anyone playing with 150 watt.
But there's so many people that had when the Mesas came out, so many people had those amps, and I mean not right away, but you weren't like, these weren't bands that were like, touring in buses or touring like a lot, you do, like just like when at that time touring, I guess was a little different maybe, but you're playing basements or playing a fucking like, hole in the wall and showing up with like a 5150, and no one, I'm not sorry, with a rectifier, which is super loud, but the other guitar player would have like a rack mount, or whatever it may be, I know in the Midwest, the Ampeg one that Nate was talking about a couple weeks ago, that was another amp that people had, and so those would be the amps that we would work with. But yeah, man, I rode that fucking FX processor power amp thing for a long time, and I didn't use any of the effects. I just used the distortion, but I thought I'd have a lot of varied distortion, and I was like, it was such a waste of money in retrospect. I'm just like, why did I buy it? And I was like $600 or some shit, like $700, I thought I used, but I just like showed up like, yeah, man, I got the 2101. I had no clue how to use it. It was just like a fucking computer. And then when later I started to not bring that around, and I used to just borrow people's amps for a while. And then I remember when Harvest ended up breaking up, Extinction broke up. I mean, we were in a band, I think around then either, when they broke up. We played their last show, Harvest's last show, and then like a couple months later, the guys from Harvest were like, we're doing a new band, and would you be down to play? And I was like, sure. They were from Minneapolis, I was in Chicago. I was like, yeah, let's do it. So as I started, like, I remember this is like the story that I tell those guys all the time. I'm always reminded of it, is like my first practice with those dudes, and I was like, okay, these guys have this gear, XYZ, whatever, no big deal. And I'll show up, I can fucking hold my own. And I show up, and I got my rack gear, plop it down. We start like trying to, write stuff, and you can't hear me at all. And like Dan Zimmerman, the other guitar player, his Mesa, he had a Mesa dual rectifier, was maybe on 2. And I was like cranked, and you couldn't hear shit. So I was like, fuck, what am I gonna do? And then the first thing they said is, okay, you gotta get a tuner. And I'm like,
wait, so the Digitech didn't have a tuner?
It did, but they like, it was like they wanted to be like very like uniform.
Yeah.
So they're like, let's get you a Boss tuner and let's get you a Boss noise gate. I was like, a noise gate? I don't need a noise gate, because I didn't like noise gate. I wanted to be fucking like Vic DeCara, just so fucking noisy and like feedback. And they're like, no, we gotta change this. So then I remember that day we went to this music shop. God, what was the name of the music place? Jones would tell me. It was in Minneapolis. It was like you could trade stuff in. I forgot the name of the place. But Dan's like, we're gonna go get you a amp right now. I have a voucher for like $100 off or something crazy, or it was like some sort of rebate actually. He was just like getting money back, and we found a original 5150 that I bought for $300. And then plopped that down. Had the noise gate. We had it set the way that I'm like, oh, now I see how you guys had these like fucking just clean breaks every time, just like so clean. And then my Boss tuner and plug in, and I was like, whoa. Whole new world opened up. For the past like 4 years, I was playing the shittiest gear, more expensive than the fucking amp that I was playing, and it sounded fucking killer. And I still have that fucking 5150. It is the best sounding amp I have ever owned, and it was like just out of commission for 10 years in my parents' basement and didn't work.
Right.
And I took it to this luthier and amp guy in Chicago. He used to do Wilco stuff. That's another story with my SG, but I bought it in there one time after like 10 years. I'm like, yo, can you fix this thing? And he's like, you really want this thing fixed? It's kind of just like whatever. I was like, all right, kind of gave me that whole story because they're like boutique guys, right? And then he did it, and I was like, yes, it sounded so good. And it's still like my favorite amp. It is the amp that I will definitely always go to play heavy music. Even though I also have a rectifier, that's a different story. But that rectifier, it's a one-trick pony, it's great. But the 5150 just has something. That is my amp, I would say. If I play heavy music, 5150 all the way. Original, like the OG with the signature.
Yeah, I think like... Because it wasn't until, I don't think I had anything, I don't even think I was using a tuner early on, like playing the Left in Ruin stuff. And then later, I joined Darkest Hour, and that was, at that point I had saved up and I had gotten a dual rectifier, like it was like a 93, 94 dual rectifier, and found a matching recto cab, like tall cab, used, and so I was playing that, and then I had found like another thing, like you were talking about, like the in the classifieds, like did you have like the Trading Post?
We had one called the Trading Times.
Trading Times.
And it was incredible.
That shit was the best.
It was so good.
In Virginia, it was called the Trading Post, and there was different ones for each town. In Virginia, and that was like one of my Bibles. It was like
I have
all of the catalogs, and then like every week I would go out to the corner store, find the new Trading Post, and go to the music section and see like what was in there.
That's what I got the SG from. I got Trading Times, and then also with the SG, I bought that. I was like, okay, I got this guitar, but I also want like a backup. Everyone had like, now at this point, people are getting like 2 guitars. And I was like, oh, okay, I got some money. I'll buy another guitar, and I wanted a Les Paul. So before I got the Les Paul, I bought this SG from Guitar Center for maybe $300. Not maybe that $250 maybe.
What kind of SG was it?
It was an SG, just one humbucker and a Roman numeral on the what is it? The fucking
was it the SG1 or whatever?
I don't know, but it was awesome, and it got stolen out of my car with some drum equipment as well, in front of those of you guys from Chicago back in the day would know Filter Coffee, or Filter Cafe on the corner of Milwaukee and Damon, where the Victory Records store used to be, right in front around 30 o'clock in the afternoon before the yuppies moved into that neighborhood. It was still fucking gnarly. Smashed my window, took this SG, which I had put an EMG 81 in, right? And then also took some drum gear, so that was gone. So after that is when I, in the Trading Times, found a wine red, same color SG as the SG was also like the wine red cherry. I don't know what color that was. Studio that I purchased for $450, and that guitar I played I think I actually tracked Cold Blue, the first HopeCon record, with that guitar, because it was like my go-to guitar. Or no, I did it with the SG. I did it with the SG. But the Les Paul was a great guitar, and you were talking about what you were playing in Darkest Hour. You bought a tall Mesa.
Yeah.
I had the same cab that I was borrowing from Dan, the other guy in HopeCon, and he's like, "Hey man, like if you're gonna be playing that, I'm gonna just buy it off me." And I was like, really? I was like, "Dan, come on, man, let me just use it." And he needed money, so I was like, "Fuck." So the only way I could buy that thing was I had to sell my studio. Yeah. So I sold my studio, the red one, and then I bought the Mesa, the tall slant tab Mesa.
Yeah, like 'cause I got the first Les Paul, same story. Like wanted a Les Paul. I found a Les Paul Standard. It was a '91 black or ebony Les Paul Standard. Yeah. And I got it for $800 out of
trading time. Trading whatever. Yeah.
But then I ended up. Then I started getting into like, because I was like, well, I really like how like the custom looks, and so I started like experimenting with like swapping out hardware and like so it had chrome hardware on it. And I left that, but then like I put like black pickup rings on it, put the EMG 8581 in it. Nice. And then put black knobs on it, so it was all blacked out, and like that was kind of like the one thing that I would do to try and like make it unique. Yeah. Because there's everybody had Gibsons, and it was like I was like, oh well, how do I make this like my own? And it's like that's a hot tip like for everyone out there. If you want to spruce up your guitar or do something different with it, it's really cheap to get like just different plastic parts for it. Yeah. And it makes like a huge difference.
I took my SG with the Bigsby, and I took the Bigsby off, and I put a regular bridge on it.
Did you have to drill into it, or
no? It just popped off. So there was like
so it still has the pins.
Oh no! I had to put someone had to drill into it. Yes, we had to drill into it. The guy who did it, and then they put the bridge on, and it just became a regular EMG. I mean, sorry, SG. With EMGs in it.
Yeah.
And it plays like a metal guitar. It's like my favorite, it's my favorite guitar. I don't play it out live as much because it's very fragile now.
Yeah.
But it sounds great. And then the same luthier amp shop that I took it to in Chicago to get the 5150 done, I took the SG back one year, and I was like, hey, can you like redo this? Like bring it back to like where it was? He's like, yeah, it's gonna cost some good amount of money, but he's like, I'll do it. I'm like, okay, let's do it one by one. So I had broken the SG into like 3 pieces, playing a show in Oakville, Canada.
Worth it. Right? Totally worth it.
Yeah, totally worth it. In a YMCA actually. And smashed the guitar like I was like in a rock band or something like that. And the SG split. Not, how you crack the headstock usually? Yeah. This time the SG split the body, went like that. I literally folded the body in half, almost, right? So it's like that. And the neck had broken off. The where all the components and the button, the knobs were, just went like that. And I was like, well, this thing's gone. And at that point, I didn't know anything about like, oh, this is like vintage or who the fuck cares, And then, but I was like, shit, man, this is broken. And I just left it like that for years. And then I played, then I borrowed Dan's white studio. Those of you guys who go way back, if you guys see the Harvest record on the back, Living with a God Complex, he's playing a white studio Les Paul with an X on the bottom pick guard.
Yeah.
I started borrowing that guitar, and the same situation happened. I was like, I just started borrowing it. And I was like, I don't know if I can afford it, but I didn't have money. It was so broke. And then I broke it at a show, broke the headstock by like smashing into something. And I was like, well, it looks like I own this guitar now, so I had to pay him up. And so at one point I had 3 Les Pauls that were broken. I had a black studio too that somehow I acquired from a friend in Chicago. Yeah. I had a white studio that was broken. I had the black one that was broken, and then I had the SG that was broken. And I don't remember what guitar I was playing in the interim. I was borrowing someone's other guitar that I wasn't gonna break, and I forgot what it was. But those are the 3 guitars. I remember I was shifting back and forth. Yeah, and then I bought a standard.
Yeah.
When I had some money, I bought a standard, an '86 or '85 standard. I don't think the '80s was a great year for Gibson, but
Great era. Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like they've come around now. Like people are like, I don't think the guitars have changed at all.
Yeah,
but for whatever reason, like people are either like, have amnesia about what was said about those guitars in the last decade, and now all of a sudden, well, it's vintage, so let's get.
And we didn't have any and when HopeCon started playing, we didn't get any endorsements or anything like that. I think we had SIT strings was the first thing we had, and that was the EVR. But I knew a lot of bands at that time were getting ESP, or started. ESP was really starting to give out. Schecter too, I think, was starting to give out guitars.
Yeah.
And hey, you guys should play this, and all of us were like, nope. Sorry, no, we don't want to play ESPs. We just wanted to play our vintage Gibsons because we were so loyal to these guitars. I mean, they were great guitars, but in retrospect, I'm like, fuck, man, I would take an ESP and just smash the shit out of it all the time. And I didn't. And when I was in high school, I would have loved to have an ESP because that's what fucking Metallica was playing at the time, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, fuck, and everyone's like, oh, dude, you gotta get an ESP, man. That's the best guitar. And I was like, what? That thing's a real person's guitar. I don't.
Well, it's funny. I totally wanted the endorsements, and I was just because through Metallica, the ESPs, I was just like, dude, those are so dope.
Yeah.
And in the '90s, the diamond plate black Hetfield EXP was. I was just like, it's so cool. And then all of Kurt's, he had the Gibson style flying V. That they had at the time, and then the Melody Maker headstocked kind of Les Paul shape, and I was just like, those are so cool. But Gibsons were also super cool, so it was just I had all the Gibsons, but then this goes into later selling them all off. I finally I played an ESP, and I was just this plays so much better than any of the Gibsons I had, and I was just spoiler alert, going later, it was just oh wait, I just want guitars that stay in tune, don't freak out when you look at them wrong, a Gibson, constantly tuning, real world experience, being in the studio and having to retune before every take, and being having to retake stuff because the guitar's gone out of tune during the take.
Yeah.
And I was just oh wait, other guitars have other manufacturers have figured out how to get string pull to go, straight through the nut, so you don't have G string that's constantly getting caught on the nut. And I remember all of the bands getting the ESP stuff, and Snapcase was one of them. They were just just by the truckload, sending them guitars. Those days, it's definitely a little bit more slim pickings these days, but
but back then they were trying to
all the hardcore artists were starting to
and
get
metal
approached.
bands too, right? Yeah. We for some reason did. Yeah, all of us were I remember a guitar player at the time was playing a standard and a custom. I was playing early HopeCon. I was playing a Les Paul, a Studio. Studio is my favorite guitar. I will go down right now and say that the Gibson Les Paul Studio is my favorite guitar.
Yeah,
It is light, perfect for me. It has the perfect dimensions and everything, and I have, in my opinion, I have written some best stuff on it.
That's all. Well, it's just to be because all of the weights varied wildly throughout all these, and they do that for all of the even when I was playing the ESPs, and and I've noticed it on the Jacksons as well. One guitar could be 8 pounds, another one could be 6.
Yeah.
You know, then and it's all the same model.
Yeah.
But like depending on the woods that they're using, like that day,
Yeah,
like it can be
it just
a total
varies.
crapshoot.
I have this white Les Paul that used to be Dan Zimmerman's Les Paul, and it is a fucking awesome white Les Paul. And still got the EMG 81s. It looks yellow now because it's got that, you know, that aged. And then I have a black Les Paul Studio at my parents' house, which for some reason I never got glued together because it's got a pretty gnarly break in it. Or it's almost like fully, the headstock and the neck. It's like basically one, not just a headstock crack. It's a peel
compound fracture.
Yeah. I think someone can fix it, but I'd like to get it fixed because it's actually a fucking awesome guitar. I love Studios, and then and they play like they're like the mix between a super metal guitar, like the action on it, and like and a regular Gibson, right?
Yeah.
Because that Jackson Flying V I got, you know, the basic model, whatever. The neck on it is like a fucking club. It's like a Fender. You know, and I was like, this is gonna be like super fast. I was like, nope. You know, and I was like, bummer.
It could be different. Like, I think the thing that I like about on the Jacksons is the compound radius fretboard. So like getting up higher, like it
doesn't lose.
It's a lot flatter, so it's easier to, you know, like play across and then still be able to do chords and stuff in the lower frets with a rounder radius on it. But
so I actually do want to try playing like spending money on a like good either Jackson or a Charvel.
Yeah,
you know, because like for years I've seen like metal bands and some even hardcore bands play those guitars and they gotta play great. I mean, I'm sure they do. I'm looking for one with a thin neck, like that plays like my SG. It's like fucking super low action and just fast as fuck.
Oh yeah,
like skinny, like a skinny neck.
Yeah, like the Jackson Speed neck is like their super thin profile. Like
does Ibanez?
Ibanez, like their Wizard necks are super thin.
The Wizard,
too. Like the Speed neck they have on the Mick Thompson Soloist, like it's not on a lot of guitars, but like if you wanted to see like what the Jackson like super thin neck is, like that guitar, and they have an import version
because there's some people who are doing the Ibanez RX or whatever that series was for a while. They're kind of like almost like
it's the radius body where it's thin on the top side and then the bottom is actually full size rather than the S, which is like the the UFO shape.
Exactly. But people were playing both those guitars and I was like, these things are pretty fucking nice. You know, they played really nice. Yeah, and I remember like Dan, who we had on a couple weeks ago, him and Brent Decker, who's also in Race Trader, plays bass in Race Trader, but both of them were playing guitar at one point. And they both were rocking those Ibanez's. I remember. That was a guitar that those guys would go through.
Because those were spec'd and it's so funny, like going back to like what, you know, if I have like the custom shop Jackson Soloist, like I spec that with, you know, mahogany wings on it as opposed to alder, which a lot of like some of the more shred guitars and like or Fender, like most of those are alder bodies. But the Ibanez, like those S540s were a mahogany body with a bolt-on maple neck. Got it. Like, and it's funny, like that pairing, the maple mahogany, like with the Les Paul Standard, Les Paul Studio. The SGs are usually all mahogany, but like I kind of realized that like my ear definitely gravitates towards the, you know, like the bass response of like a mahogany guitar.
I can't tell the difference. I just someone's like, this is balsa,
stand too?
This is balsa wood. I'm like, as long as it gives me like good crunch, or if it's gonna give me like a sweet, chord out of it, it's good. I've been playing Fenders for the last 10 years, which is weird because I haven't been playing like a lot of heavy stuff. I mean, since I moved to LA, it's like Fender Gretsch. My favorite guitar as of like the past like 5-6 years has been a Gretsch Streamliner, I think it's called. Yeah. It's a semi-hollow body. It's got a really thin body on it. It plays so good. It's got a Bigsby on it. And it was like 450, like $500. It's an import. Like, I think it's made in Indonesia. It sounds so good.
Incredible.
It sounds so good. And I was like, that is like my favorite guitar. And I was like, if I ever did like a rock and roll, like Suicide File type band again, or like just more punk band, I'd like to try to use that. But it's a semi-hollow body and it's okay. For that, but for like clean stuff that I was doing for a while when I was playing with some other people that it wasn't my music, it was their music, and I was just like, oh, this guitar works perfect for like some of that stuff that's more pretty. And then what was the other guitar that I was playing? Was a great guitar, and I was playing a Hagstrom for a little bit. It was awesome, and it was a vinyl. It was like the vinyl toilet covers.
Wait, so what era Hagstrom is it? One of the newer ones?
No,
or?
This is like a 70s.
Oh,
This is like an old Hagstrom, yeah. Sam from Beginners has a Hagstrom guitar and a Hagstrom bass from that era.
Oh, wow.
Like, they are vintage.
So it's not like the Pat Smear reboot.
No. This is like, you're like, oh, this bridge is janky. Oh, it's from the 60s, you know? So it's like, it's just a bar. It's just like a bar.
Was, like, that whole era of guitars, like, because there wasn't, like, standardized parts, so everybody was kind of like, you know, like Dan Electro was like, all right, well, let's figure out a bridge.
They
like,
literally, for the nut, had just, like, a bar with, like, 2 little posts on it. And that's what it was. And the body was, like, plastic, the top, and had this, like, plastic, weird, like Fisher-Price toy looking pick guard. Yeah. And on the back, it was all that vinyl that you'd see on like 70s toilet seat covers. And I played it at Sam's. Like, I mean, I think I used it on some beginners recordings and some stuff that we did for like placements and commercials, and it sounded pretty fucking cool for like that type of stuff, you know. It was a really cool guitar to play with. It was rad. And she also has a, well, I'm sure when we have her on, she'll talk about, but that she's got that Mustang. Yeah. It's a bass, but it's like, it has 2...
the Rally Stripe Mustangs.
Yeah, dude, fuck, it's so good. Yeah. And they're like from that era. Yeah. Like from like the 60s and 70s. And she's got a guitar and the bass, but they're great. And I really like Fender now. Like, I don't know if I could play Fender in HopeCon. I tried using the Tele, and it doesn't work, but the Tele that I use for God Collider fucking rips. But that neck is also beastly. Yeah. It's like thick, right? And I want something where the neck is like thin and just super fast. So I'm on the hunt. So if anyone out there has any suggestions, any companies want to send me a balsa wood guitar that's fast, I'm in.
Man, like, having said what I said about mahogany, it's funny, like, you know, and talking about, like, it just got a New Jackson from, it's sent over, it's the Mall Crackle Rhodes Flying V, or Rhodes V, and it's got basswood wings on it, which I was hesitant because, like, I'm not super familiar with bass. I know, like, Van Halen used it a lot on his guitars and whatnot, so I was just like, I kind of really want mahogany, and then started ripping on it, and it's just like, oh, no, this sounds great. Like, it's like, you know, all things equal, like, I mean, just having a guitar that's fun and inspiring to play is number one. And then, like, but I'm just realizing or just further driving home that no matter what the body wood is, like, you can make it work. Because, like, with, like, the Brats, like, I play, like, my 2 main guitars are, like, a Gretsch Duo Jet and a Charvel Style 2, which is, like, their Telecaster. Which is alder and maple, and they both sound different, but like in a live situation, it's just like it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, and this thing is like live. It's like it depends what kind of music you're playing, but like for me, I could sit down with that Flying V that I bought for like $250, and I'll be like, oh, this is really cool because it's just configured differently, right? So I might end up playing something that's different just because of the way that the guitar is set up.
Yeah.
You know, and I'll be like, and the way that's voiced on the fret or whatever it may be, and I was like, oh, that sounds really cool, and I just said like, oh, the neck is too thick on it, but then I'll be like, I just ended up writing this riff on it, so wait a second, I'm gonna keep this guitar, right? It could be anything like that. I mean, that Hagstrom that I told you about, like, it totally changed the way I was writing a song because it sounds so classic. You can put as much distortion on that thing's not getting distorted. Right?
That's crazy.
It's just so like classic 60s kind of like, you know, like strum, like just very light sounding guitar.
Yeah.
And so that's the kind of riffs that it just kind of started coming out. So I remember we had to write a song for some like Christmas fucking jingle or something, and they're like, hey, can you guys make a song like the Lumineers? Or I'm like, I guess, really bad, but sure. And I used that guitar, and it just came out with this like fucking, you know, that sort of riff, and because it had that twang, and had that like kind of like that like really high end sizzle, that not sizzle, but like I guess just like ringing, like bells kind of sounding, you know. It was a great guitar, but you write differently with different guitars.
Right. Like I think there's two different kind of approaches. Like one is live and one is like recording, and it's nice to have like all the different options for recording. Like live though, like I feel like it's more function than, you know, like specific pieces of gear. So like having a pedal board that fits in my roller bag, having a guitar case that carries multiple guitars, so I only have one check. I'm like, over carrying like tons of gear. I'm over pedal boards. Like I'm just gonna use this Line 6 now. I'm on the record right now, Line 6, that I'm only using Line 6. And I don't care what people say. I don't care what, you know, I'm sick of breaking my back carrying fucking gear anymore. So I'm probably not going to buy a guitar head ever again, realistically, unless like I somehow am in a new band that's going to be like really touring a lot. So I'll probably just get like a quilter, or which I've heard is great, or a smaller head, and use that as like a fly rig with my, with my Line 6, and maybe like one or two pedals that Line 6 might not have in it, you know. Yeah, like I feel like because you know I play EVH now, and like that, like I've been able to make that head, like it's a 3-channel head. It's great because I can play Gaia Collider on it. I can play Bratz, which is more like 70s-ish rock sounds on it, and like and really like, especially like traveling around, like, and primarily doing fly dates where you're not using your own amp 9 times out of 10. So it's you know, just having the ability to get a distorted sound, or like just like a broken up sound, like
that's gonna sound similar to your gear.
That's it,
because no one's gonna be like, wait, what? You know, I mean, there are some people like that, and those people I just don't pay attention to. But yeah, is that my dog? I have to visit my dog, actually. I have a puppy, everybody, so he is at home.
Well, I think that's probably a good place to wrap. So like I guess, you know, since we've been talking to all of these different guests and like kind of their one thing, I think maybe we should end on, you know, what is your one thing, and I'll
my one thing.
I'm going to you first because I want to have time to think about what my
okay. My one thing is definitely a Boss. What is it? RTU tuner, whatever, the white pedal with the, you know, that is my. I have to have that pedal. I have to have that tuner pedal. Actually, I take that back because Line 6 has a great tuner built into it, so now I don't need the Line 6, so now I don't need it. So what I really need, actually, that I have to have with me, and I know everyone's gonna laugh, but I a lot of times don't, and I have to ask someone, sometimes even at a show, picks. I I always need a pick, and I always usually need the the Dunlop Tortex red pick, which I believe is a 60 millimeter. It's pretty thin, and I can even go a little bit thinner because I like the attack that I get, or the lack of attack that I get on the way I play. If I have a too heavy of a pick, it's problematic. I get tripped up. So the floppier the better, because I get more of like, I play more open anyway. So that's like my style. So everyone's like, "Oh, you play really fucking thin picks." I'm like, "Yeah," because it just gives me that attack that I like, as opposed to being really sharp. Although with God Clutter I have switched, but I would say the gear that I can't be without is a pick, and sometimes I won't have it with me, but I need it. So if I ever play with any of your bands, just heads up, Tortex red 60 millimeter.
Man, okay. Yeah, I think so. I'm just processing the whole time. I think it's probably like the touch points are like crucial. So it's like pick is same, like 60 millimeter having.
Oh, you're 60 millimeter?
Yeah.
And I'm lower. I might be 40 millimeter.
Yeah,
because I play with thin picks.
Yeah, like
Let me see one of those. What was that one?
This one's in tune, or yeah, I think it's.
Yeah, I go a little bit. I go like too floppier than that.
But yeah, having like consistent touch points, and like also like with string gauge definitely like dictates like what gauge pick.
That's true. String. I forgot about
string
that.
tension rather like. So depending on, because it could be a heavy gauge with a stupid tuning like in God Collider to like drop A.
That's true, because I tried playing with the floppier pick for God Collider, because we have a huge, basically the low bass string is the low E on my telly. So I switched picks, got a heavier pick, but the heavier pick kept getting stuck, so I just went back to playing the floppier pick, but just held it closer.
Yeah.
And it fixed the situation for me, But I could totally see if the different gauges is going to require different pieces. But for me, the pick stays consistent for sure. But for Fred, I think he might vary.
Yeah, I actually, for the most, it's kind of come back to, like, I go on adventures every now and then, like the Plectrum adventure to see, like, oh, there's probably a new shape, like, like when I was starting to play bass and was getting ready to go out with Prong for the first time, was like, well, I'll try like triangle picks for bass, and like tried all these different things, and then like inevitably 60 millimeter.
I also it's like before I'm still testing out my new setup, but before that it'd definitely be the Boss tuning pedal.
So for you, top three are
Tortex picks, Boss tuning pedal, and then Line 6 DDL, whatever the green,
the green, DD6.
Yeah, DD6. Green pedal was.
Okay, then for me it would be the 60 millimeter pick, then the what is it? TC Electronic Polytune, because it's got a buffer in it. I don't know if this. I haven't done any scientific.
I don't know what that means, but yeah.
But just mentally, it feels like that combats signal loss better through a pedal board. So that tuner and ISP decimator noise gate, like
that is cool.
Hands down my favorite, and like recently been using the ISP. Decimator G string, so you can run it through your effects loop and through the front end of the signal path, so it picks up like how hard you're playing on the strings to.
So is it like a compressor too in a way? Right?
No, well, it just senses like the attack. So if it, in theory and in practice, as I've seen it, like it does a really good job of like, because normally if you're running just a regular noise gate, it will clamp down on like clean sounds, so you have to either turn it off or have different settings for clean. With the G string, it senses like how hard you're playing, So it's looking at the signal coming into the pedal, and then it's doing the noise gate in the effects loop. So it's clamping down after, or like the way I have it set up, it's before the delay and reverb and like any time effects. So you can run, I can switch to clean and still have the noise gate running full bore, and I can still play clean,
okay.
which is pretty cool.
I see, you can, oh, okay. But why did they name it the G-string? Ew.
On that note, we'll see you next time. Cheers.
Cheers.